This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things that people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see what you can save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
This episode is brought to you by Hulu, presenting Paradise. Paradise is Hulu's critically acclaimed addictive drama series, starring Sterling K. Brown, Julianne Nicholson, and James Marsden. The Daily Beast calls Paradise your next TV obsession, and the New York Times says it's exhilarating in all the right ways. Paradise is for your Emmy consideration in all categories, including Outstanding Drama Series. For more information, visit fyc.hulu.com.
This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at polestar.com.
Welcome back to Mama Mystery. I am your host, Kelly.
Wah, wah, wah. And I am your co-host, Austin.
And Austin is back. It's been a minute since we've had Austin on the podcast, and I'm sure you've all missed him greatly.
Well, I'm back, so no worries.
So much has happened in the last few weeks. Our kids are out for the summer, so I'm trying my best to get these episodes out on time, which is typically on a Tuesday. But man, all these camps, there's just so much going on. I know a lot of moms can relate, but we are just kind of burning the candle at both ends. It feels like.
Yeah, I agree with that. Time goes fast in the summer, I'll tell you that. Freaking, we're halfway through the year, okay? Officially halfway through the year. And then also we hit this little time period where we are closer to 2050 than we are to 2000.
Why did you just ruin my day like that?
Just telling you the truth. Closer to 2050 than we are to 2000. It's now closer.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, let's talk about some positive and exciting things. My book, Wicked Women, was released, and if you purchased one through my website, those will be shipping out soon. I ran out of my first round, so there will be some that arrive in about 1 week from today, which is June 9th. And so as soon as I get those in, I'll be signing those and shipping those out. Austin signed quite a few of them. So if you want one that is also signed by Austin, or at least signed by me, go to mamamystery.com/shop, and it should be right there on that page. But yeah, it's been really exciting releasing the book. We had a little author talk at a local bookstore here in our hometown, which was amazing. It's very surreal releasing a book, but it's like the first of many. I feel like this is just only the beginning. We've got Wicked Women, and then I have some other ideas for subsequent books. Like, obviously this book is all crimes that were committed by women, but I want to do collections of other types of crimes as well.
Kelly's going to write
like
10 books.
Maybe more, maybe 12.
Maybe 15.
Maybe 16. Anyway, so that's exciting. And also one more thing I wanted to put out into the world is that the Motherload podcast is up and running. Now, this is going to be kind of a spinoff of the Mama Minute episodes. This podcast is dedicated solely to conversations with me and my good friend, Carol Ann Miljavic. So Carol Ann is a comedian. She's actually on tour. She's very popular, so you should go check her out on all the socials, but she's a very funny lady. So we just sit and talk about conversational things, topical things, friendship, parenthood, life, and then some serious stuff as well. So yeah, if you're into that, and if you liked the Mama Minutes, go check out the Motherload podcast.
Heck yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we get started?
No, I'm excited.
Okay.
I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, me too. I hope that you're back again soon. It's just so hard to get our schedules to align. So
busy life.
Yeah, we're just busy people. But today we are talking about the turbulent life and tragic fall of Aaron Hernandez.
No way. Holy smokes. I'm excited. I know about this one.
Yes. So I saved this one. I actually wrote it a long time ago. I don't even know when I wrote it, but I have been saving this specifically for when I had you on.
Oh man, this one's, if you guys haven't seen the Netflix documentary, go watch that. It's a multi-part series. It's really good.
It is really good. And it's really sad. And a lot of what I talk about today is covered in the documentary as well. But yeah, it's just such a wild story. And I'm really eager to get your insight on it because you're so big into sports and know so much about sports. And you, better than anybody, or better than most anyway, understand the magnitude of this story and what a huge fall from grace it was. So,
yeah. Big time.
Without further ado, let's dive in. Okay. So, Aaron Joseph Hernandez was born on November 6th of 1989 in Bristol, Connecticut, to a family that from the outside looked like a regular American household. His father, Dennis Hernandez, was a local sports hero of Puerto Rican descent, and his mother, Terry, was of Italian descent. But behind closed doors, young Aaron's upbringing was filled with turbulence and trauma. The Hernandez home was often a battleground with constant fighting, sometimes physical, a huge part of the family's routine. It's just their norm. Both parents had run-ins with the law during their lives, and finances were rocky. At one point, they actually filed for bankruptcy. Aaron and his older brother, DJ, who would have been the junior to Dennis. So we have Dennis Hernandez Sr., and then we have DJ, who is Dennis Hernandez Jr., but I'll go ahead and call him DJ. So Aaron and his older brother DJ lived in fear of their father's rages, even as they also idolized him. Dennis Hernandez could be loving one moment and then violent the next. He would beat the boys for any misstep, whether it was a bad grade, back talk, or even just sheer clumsiness, as DJ later recounted. Now, on one occasion, Aaron came to school with a black eye, which his coach suspected was the result of Dennis punching him. Then, in another incident emblematic of household volatility, Dennis even punched Aaron's youth football coach during a dispute about coaching.
You can't punch the coach.
Thank you. I think, yeah, that should be just a universal truth.
Just so you know, though, like that's a rule.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But amid this turbulent environment that he was living in, Aaron also suffered a secret trauma. As an adult, he revealed to his brother that at just 6 years old, he was sexually molested by an older boy during a game of hide and seek. DJ remembered playing in one room while Aaron was coerced into hiding in a tent with a teenager who then assaulted him. Aaron emerged quiet and disturbed, but told no one at the time. And this dark secret really festered for years. Layered on top of the physical abuse at home, it just compounded the psychological scars that this young boy carried. And I feel like all of this is so important to the entire picture. Context always matters, right? So in public, Dennis, the dad, really projected this image of this redeemed family man. He was nicknamed the King in his hometown, and he was once this troubled youth who had straightened out to raise successful boys. He really pushed Aaron and DJ hard, especially in sports, expecting nothing less than excellence. So under his tough love, the boys did become talented athletes, but the emotional cost was high. Aaron grew up in an atmosphere where violence was an everyday solution to problems, and vulnerability was something that you just were not allowed to show.
And that dad, yeah, he was a real alpha dog.
Yes.
Like, he was like the type of guy that was just, roo, roo, roo. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He was an alpha dog.
Yeah, I think you just blew out everybody's speakers.
I'm just being honest. That's how he was.
But I also think that that is so common. And I'm seeing even now with like sports becoming so much more competitive than they were like when I was a kid, and probably when you were a kid too. Like there's a level of competition, and then there's like this level of extreme where parents are just ruthless with their kids when it comes to sports.
Yeah, and I think it goes to the internet accessibility, social media. You have younger athletes that they can put stuff on Huddle, HUDL, which is like this highlight place where you can send your shit to college coaches and stuff. And like everybody takes everything so serious from age 4.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've seen you that thing recently where like 78% of major league pitchers that were Hall of Famers were late bloomers.
Right. And we try to tell Jack that all the time because Our son Jack, who is about to be 12, is only just now getting into baseball. And I'm like, oof, in the back of my mind, I'm like, we're a little late in the game to be getting interested in baseball, because I feel like everyone has been so uber competitive since young ages, like 4 or 5. But I also remind him, like, hey, a lot of the MLB players are late bloomers. So
you got the
start when
MJ
you're
Cup
ready.
from his high school team as a sophomore. I mean, you got all kinds of stories like that.
Yeah. But there are so many parents that are like, no, if you're not great at 6 years old, you'll never be great.
Which is the stupidest thing ever. I could go on a rant about this.
Yeah. Which we've talked about that kind of before. I feel like our listeners kind of know where we stand when it comes to competitive sports. But everything changed for Aaron in January of 2006, when Aaron was 16. So he was a junior in high school, and Dennis Hernandez died suddenly due to complications from a routine hernia surgery. And the loss really devastated Aaron. This larger-than-life figure who had dominated Aaron's world was gone overnight. And I cannot even imagine the shock of going under anesthesia for something that you totally expect to wake up from. It's like a routine surgery, and then not waking up. And the family, like, I just cannot imagine what a shock that would be. So according to his mother and friends, Aaron never fully recovered from that shock. And the teenager's grief soon morphed into anger and rebellion. With the anchor, and you might even say warden of his life, gone, Aaron's behavior turned erratic and defiant toward authority. Unfortunately, instead of bringing the remaining family closer, Dennis's death only ripped the Hernandez family apart further. In the aftermath, there was this explosive family secret that came to light, which was that Aaron's mom, Terry, had been having an affair with Jeff Cummings, who was actually the husband of Aaron's cousin, Tanya Singleton. And you might remember Tanya from the documentary.
Tanya was like Aaron's best friend.
Yes, they were exceptionally close. They were cousins, but Tanya also acted kind of as like a mother figure to him. And then later on, Tanya ended up getting breast cancer. And during Aaron's subsequent trial, she testified for those trials. But later, she ended up passing to breast cancer, which is just, I feel like this story has so many layers of tragedy. But this betrayal that happened with this affair really cut deep. Imagine being a teenager, mourning the loss of your dad, only to find out that your mom is romantically involved with your cousin's husband. So for Aaron, this was intolerable. Once the affair became public, Tanya divorced Jeff, and Jeff promptly moved into Terry's house, and Aaron was enraged. He could not forgive his mother for what he saw as a grave betrayal on top of his father's death.
And all this trauma is layered into you're 16, 17, 18 years old.
Yes. Your frontal lobe's not developed. You're playing football and you're getting concussions on a pretty regular basis because he's playing this super aggressive sport and he's highly competitive. I mean, it all makes sense at the end, you know?
Definitely.
So after this, the relationship between Aaron and his mom deteriorated dramatically, and he became estranged from her, barely speaking to her for a really long time. So feeling like he really had no home with his mother anymore, Aaron moved in with his cousin Tanya, who lived nearby in Bristol. Tanya Singleton was more than a decade older and offered Aaron a kind of refuge. At Tanya's place, however, there was minimal supervision. So Aaron suddenly had this newfound freedom and a sympathetic ear in his cousin, who herself had a bit of a wild streak and also had been through a lot of her own stuff. But friends later noted that after moving into Tanya's house, Aaron started spending time with a rough crowd and getting involved in criminal activity. So it was at this point that some early warning signs of Aaron's dark side began to emerge. He was nursing a lot of anger at authority, at his mother, and now he had the latitude to act out. So he was also coping by self-medicating. Aaron had already started heavily smoking marijuana as a teenager, which was a habit that would only grow, and he would smoke before school, before practice, even before games, which really, that one kind of blew me away because I think marijuana kind of like mellows you out and like relaxes you, right? So like just to think that anyone would like smoke weed before a game where they're expected to be physically demanding, you know, I don't know how that would work. But in phone calls from jail years later, Aaron bluntly told his mother how he felt about this period of his life, saying, quote, "I was the happiest fucking little kid in the world and you fucked me up." end quote. And that is so heartbreaking to hear. Like when you really think about the weight of that statement, the gravity of that, losing his father and then seeing his mother with this other man that he was also related to just shattered him.
Mm-hmm.
The bitterness and hurt from his teenage years clearly never left him. And in many ways, the seeds of Aaron's later troubles were really planted in this tumultuous upbringing. An abusive father that he could never please, an abrupt loss, a family betrayal, and then childhood traumas that were kept silent. Like it created
And then he goes and starts running around with a really bad crew.
Yes, they're bringing out the worst in him. And it just created this perfect storm of emotional damage in a young man who was about to find fame and fortune, but was truly ill-equipped to handle those things. So despite the chaos in his personal life, Aaron thrived on the football field. At Bristol Central High School, he quickly became a local legend. By his senior year, the 6'2" Aaron Hernandez was a dominant force for the Bristol Rams football team. He played multiple positions, wide receiver, tight end, defensive end, and he was virtually unstoppable. His statistics were video game worthy. As a senior, he racked up 67 catches for 1,807 yards and 24 touchdowns, setting state records for yardage and touchdowns in a single season. Over his high school career, he tied the Connecticut record with 31 touchdown receptions and even once amassed 376 receiving yards in a single game, which was one of the best performances in national high school history.
That's insane.
These eye-popping numbers earned him the state's Gatorade Football Player of the Year award and a spot as a U.S. Army All-American. So coaches and scouts considered him the top tight end recruit in the country for the class of 2007. On campus, Aaron was well-liked and popular. He had a charismatic smile, and when he wanted to, he could charm anyone. He began dating Shayana Jenkins, a childhood friend that he had known since elementary school during high school. So Shayana was his steady girlfriend from that point forward, and their relationship would later play a big role in his life. Teachers and peers saw Aaron as an outgoing, sometimes goofy teenager, the kind who loved to be the center of attention and the star of the big game. And in some ways, he actually kind of reminds me of you in that way, because you are this like very fit, active guy. You're very charismatic. You're outgoing. You have a great smile. Like you're a charmer. But with Aaron, there's this whole other side to him in high school that only some knew about. Aaron was already using marijuana heavily, which I only scoff because you don't do that. But like, I don't know. I feel like there are some parallels and then there are some stark contrasts. But he was using weed so much.
I also never murdered anybody.
That's also a big difference between you two.
Just a heads up, but thank you.
Yes. But anyway, to the point that he was smoking it daily, even before practicing games, like I said. But he also drank alcohol frequently with his friends. So it wasn't unusual for him to show up to class like a little bit high. And to many local fans and even his coaches, these behaviors were kept under wraps because he was bringing glory to the school on Friday nights. So if he partied a little too hard, a lot of these people were willing to look the other way.
Look, Johnny Manziel built Texas A&M into what it is today, partying his ass off. And a lot of people just turned their heads because people like greatness. And it draws people, it draws positive attention to your town, to everything else. So it doesn't surprise me at all that everybody knew and was like,
yeah.
Raps.
But at some point, somebody has to step in.
Oh, it enables
and
people.
say,
Look at Manziel. Manziel ends up going out to the NFL, and it's a bust, right? Hernandez is dead. So he's a bust.
People.
And killed people.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess I say all that to 100% reinforce what you're saying. Like, yeah, these great athletes who don't have any accountability, and they get treated like, hey, you're Jesus. You can kind of do whatever you want because you're great. Mm-hmm. It never ends well.
No, we see it so often too, even on like somewhat, for whatever reason, less public scandals, like beating up their girlfriends or like driving 110 miles an hour down a freeway and hitting an innocent family and killing somebody. Like we see that happen often too with athletes, which is just crazy. So as college recruiters swarmed, Aaron initially gave a verbal commitment to the University of Connecticut, the school where his older brother DJ was a quarterback. So the plan was for the Hernandez brothers to play together at UConn, but the national powerhouse programs had their eyes on Aaron too, and the University of Florida and its coach Urban Meyer were especially determined to land this phenomenon. So Urban Meyer flew all the way to Connecticut to meet Aaron and even persuaded his high school principal to let Aaron graduate half a year early so that he could join the Florida Gators program immediately.
No
And
way,
this was
I didn't know that.
this was a highly unusual event, allowing a 17-year-old to finish high school a semester early, and it happened not because of Aaron's academics, I'm sure it was actually quite the opposite, but because of his athletic prowess. In essence, Florida had to have Aaron on the team, and strings were pulled to make that happen. So you can only imagine, like, when they're that desperate to get this player, what they're going to allow him to get away with when he's finally down there. So in January of 2007, shortly after turning 17 years old, Aaron left Bristol mid-school year and enrolled at the University of Florida, one of the top college football programs in the country at the time. I don't know if it still is.
It's not, but I get the goosebumps when we're going to have a conversation about the 2008 Florida Gators.
Mm-hmm.
Do you talk about it much?
Not a whole lot, because I don't really know much about football, so why don't you tell me?
The 2008 Florida Gators football team is like one of the most controversial, chaos-filled teams of all time. So there's a documentary on Netflix called The Swamp Kings about it, but I don't think they did a great job capturing it. It was just nuts. They had an insane amount of talent. They went 13-1. They won the national championship. Okay, so great football team. They had all kinds of players that went to the NFL. But
Tim Tebow, right?
Yeah, the culture was insane, this culture clash, okay? So Urban Meyer was the head of the whole thing. He was the head coach. And Urban Meyer, like, turns out after all these years, Urban Meyer's kind of not a great dude. Like, he's made some very questionable decisions in leadership and everything else. The whole entire team culture was win at all costs, period. And do not get caught doing anything bad. And it was insane. Fights, drugs, theft, weapon charges, insane. There were over 30 arrests in the tenure of Urban Meyer at head coach. And he didn't really care. He turned a blind eye to a lot of it and was like, do your thing.
Yeah, as long as we're winning football games, I don't care.
That's all that matters. So you had Tim Tebow praying before games and being like the man, right? He wore John 3:16 under his eye black. Man, I got the goosebumps. There's insane stories about John 3:16 and Tim Tebow.
Which that's what is written on Aaron's head when they found him in his cell.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, which we'll talk about that once we get to that point, but that's ironic.
So there's really wild John 3:16 stories. So like when Tim Tebow wore that under his eye black, some insane amount of Google searches that night was about John 3:16. And like Tim Tebow was always trying to spread the word of God, Christianity. And then later in Tim Tebow's career, like he had this one comeback when he was with head of the Broncos at quarterback. And I'm going to hack this, but like he threw for 316 yards. He had a 3.16 average rush, like all these things, just crazy. Mm-hmm. So you have Tim Tebow at the quarterback praying before games. You have Hernandez catching balls from him, living this crazy double life, getting ready to go to the NFL, but also off the field, he's involved in shootings and everything else. Then you have Percy Harvin, who was electric on the field, and he was constantly starting locker room fights, intense locker room fights.
Which is crazy. Like you're fighting against your own teammates?
Yes. And he went on to win a Super Bowl with the Seahawks. And he choked a coach in college, Percy Harvin. So then you had Cam Newton, who went on to play in the Super Bowl for the Panthers, had a good NFL career.
Cam Newton was on that team as well?
Cam Newton was Tim Tebow's backup on that team. And Cam Newton got in trouble for stealing laptops back in the Florida days. You had Riley Cooper just being Riley Cooper. Riley Cooper went on and had a short stint, I think, with the Seahawks. But like he went viral having some racial slur or something, if I remember right. And then you have Urban Meyer, who's just enabling all of this, right? And it's one of the wildest stories of college football, period. Didn't
Urban Meyer eventually get caught like canoodling with a
he was
or something, someone who was exceptionally young?
Well, here recently, he was the coach of the Jaguars for a year, okay? And he went into coaching the NFL. First time he was going to coach in the NFL. And it was like, oh, he's going to have this good coaching career. And like the first year, it's like he's at an away game and he's after the game, he went out to a club and was videoed like grinding on young girls and stuff. Geez. He has a wife at home. Like, the guy's just kind of a dirtbag, win at all costs type of guy, you know? And, man, I mean, Aaron Hernandez, that whole story's nuts, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, picking up where I kind of left off is when he arrives in Gainesville. And when Aaron arrived in Gainesville, he was this emotionally volatile teenager with a lot of baggage. Obviously, this abusive childhood, unresolved grief from losing his dad, this growing drug habit, and even some confusion about his identity, which we'll talk about later. But he was
gay. That's not appropriate.
It was actually he might have been bi. I don't know. We don't
probably
know.
Delete that. People won't like that. It's from a movie.
It's from a movie. We'll leave it in because it's just Austin. Okay.
People are gonna go.
We're not
Austin
canceling
doesn't
here.
know. I like gay people, man. I like straight people.
Your brother's gay.
Black people. I like white people. I like all people.
We shouldn't have to say this.
But this is the world we live in.
I know, it's stupid. Anyway, one of his Florida teammates later said Aaron was desperate to be the life of the party from day one. Freed from the stricter confines of his hometown, Aaron tested boundaries immediately, and trouble was not far behind. In fact, Aaron's first known brush with the law came just months after arriving at Florida. In April of 2007, as a 17-year-old freshman.
Man, that part's nuts. 17 years old.
Just got his driver's license the year before.
Yeah, and let me just say, like, real quick, when you're saying desperate to be the life of the party, he didn't have to be desperate. Because guess what? The guy dominated on the football field. The dude's a good-looking dude. He's got a big, bright smile. He didn't have to try. That's the super weird thing. Like, it was like, I don't know if it was ingrained in him from all the trauma laced into his childhood and developing years, but like, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
the dude was a stud.
Right. He was overcompensating. And I think he was overcompensating because of the brokenness that was within him from his childhood, from his upbringing. He's deeply insecure. He probably thought he was never going to be good enough because nothing he ever did for his dad was good enough. So he's probably constantly overcompensating.
Yeah.
And then the second he gets a little bit of applaud, he's like, oh, I'll do more of that thing. Like, I feel like he's emotionally stunted. You know, we have this 12-year-old boy, you and I, and a lot of times if he does something and we laugh, he does it again with a little extra oomph because he thinks, oh, I want to expand on that funny thing. Mm-hmm. But he's 12. Aaron Hernandez is 17, which is only 5 years difference, which is fucking bonkers when you think about that. But if you think about it all in this context of where he was at the time, mentally, psychologically in his life, he's getting rewarded for doing all these things. So he's like, well, I'll just keep doing these things and I'll do them on a bigger, greater scale.
And then throw in like CTE that's happening to him. But I'm just saying the guy didn't have to overcompensate. He was a stud.
For sure. Yeah. If only he would have believed that. Mm-hmm. If only. But in April of 2007, as a 17-year-old freshman, he went out to a popular Gainesville bar and restaurant called The Swamp, and a simple dispute turned violent. Aaron allegedly skipped out on a bar tab or had an argument over a bill, and a restaurant employee intervened to escort the teenager out. Aaron's reaction was to punch that staffer in the side of the head with his fist. The poor guy he had a ruptured eardrum from being punched by Aaron. It was pretty shocking. Like, this talented freshman tight end, not even legally an adult, assaulting a worker over a bar tab. So to make the scene even more surreal, Florida's star quarterback at the time, Tim Tebow, was present and reportedly tried to defuse the situation. And like you said, Tebow, who's known as this like straight-laced, devout Christian athlete, had taken a bit of a mentorship role for Aaron at Coach Meyer's request, but even he could not rein in Aaron that night. Police were called and a sworn complaint for felony battery was filed against Aaron for that incident. However, the case pretty much disappeared, and it's unclear if the victim either chose not to press charges or if a deal was cut. I'm kind of guessing the latter, but ultimately no charges stuck, and the matter just went away quietly. So the upshot of that was that Aaron faced no serious consequences from that 2007 bar fight, but in the insular world of Florida Gator football, such issues often got swept under the rug, and it likely helped that he was under 18 at the time and that the Gators were protective of this brand new prized recruit. But this would prove to be a pattern. Early warning signs of violent behavior were ignored or minimized or enabled, allowing Aaron to continue on his football trajectory without interruption. That same year, Aaron's name surfaced in an even more ominous incident. In September of 2007, after Florida lost a football game, a dispute at a Gainesville nightclub led to a drive-by double shooting in which 2 men were wounded, one in the back of the head. Gainesville police questioned a group of Florida football players about the incident, and Aaron Hernandez was among those interviewed. And it was rumored that an altercation at the club involving Aaron and other players preceded the shooting, though details remain murky.
To piggyback and just like, not to get too far off track, but just that Urban Meyer culture at Florida, okay? I looked this up and I just want to read you a few of these real fast because I think it's wild. 2010, Chris Rainey, running back and wide receiver, aggravated stalking charge, texted his girlfriend, "Time to die, bitch," was arrested shortly after. He was suspended briefly, reinstated by the end of the season. Janoris Jenkins, a bar fight in 2009, possession twice, stayed on the team during Urban's tenure. Riley Cooper, who I talked about, resisting arrest, got into an altercation with police at Avar, no suspension. Aaron Hernandez for this 2007 assault in that where he punched the guy in the eardrum, he was suspended for 1 game. Carl Johnson, an offensive lineman, accused of sexual assault in 2010, not charged, but then it sparked serious criticism of how Florida handled discipline. When Urban was when he was pressed about the arrest total during his tenure there, he said, if you say we have discipline problems, you're way out of line. That was what he said. Burglary by Tony Joyner, broke into a tow yard to receive his girlfriend's car was the thing, suspended for 1 game. Ronnie Wilson, battery and discharging a weapon in 2007, got into a fight, went into his car, got an AK-47 out and fired it into the air, suspended, reinstated later that season. Brandon Spikes, bar fight and multiple minor incidents, famously caught eye gouging Georgia's Noshawn Moreno, who went into the NFL, suspended half a game. I mean, Urban Meyer was known for second chances and third chances and fourth chances, and he just had a toxic win-first culture. And I just think that, like, okay, everything you're talking about Aaron Hernandez's upbringing, very important. Aaron Hernandez goes to Florida, gets thrown under Urban Meyer's toxic win-first culture. Right the second he gets there, punches a guy in the eardrum, gets suspended 1 game, and on we go. He was just constantly enabled, and it was just constantly, your stardom will get you out of this. Your stardom will get feeding the beast that I believe truly CTE had so much to do with also.
Oh, for sure.
So it's like,
undoubtedly,
man, it's like this guy doesn't have a chance.
Right. But it's like, this is the tale as old as time. I mean, not every football player ends up killing somebody, but a lot of these guys are committing these violent offenses and then not really seeing a lot of repercussions from that. Well, despite these red flags, on the field, Aaron was flourishing. As a true freshman in 2007, he saw playing time with the Florida Gators, which I feel like is kind of exceptional, right? Like for a freshman to get playing time on a star football team. By his sophomore year, he was a key weapon for Tim Tebow, and Florida won the national championship in the 2008 season. Aaron caught a touchdown in the title game and was really establishing himself as one of the best tight ends in the nation. And yet off the field, he continued to push the limits. He reportedly failed multiple drug tests for marijuana at Florida, a fact that only fully came to light later. Coach Urban Meyer was well aware of Aaron's weed habit. It was so persistent that Meyer considered kicking Aaron off the team at one point, which I'm sure
Urban
he
Meyer
just
ain't gonna
says
do
that.
shit.
Yeah, I'm sure he just says that. Oh, well, we came close. Only an impassioned plea by Tim Tebow convinced the coach to give Aaron another chance, apparently. So it was really Tim Tebow that saved Aaron. But still, by the end of his junior year, even Meyer had had enough. He told Aaron that he would not be welcome back for his senior season, essentially advising the 20-year-old to turn pro early in the 2010 NFL draft because his roster spot at Florida was in jeopardy due to his behavior. So Aaron Hernandez took the hint and declared for the draft. In 3 seasons at UF...
Let me just say this, okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Wow, tough shit. You can't play, so go to the NFL.
Yeah, where we are sure you'll be picked up.
And you'll dominate.
Which he does.
A few weeks before his murder charge, a few months before his murder charge, he signs a $40 million extension. So, like, again, we're not helping the guy any.
No.
We're not getting the guy help. We're not saying, hey, let's get you in with some psychologists. Let's help you along. We're just pushing our problem down the road.
Yes, exactly. You're just pushing it off to someone else.
Kick
You're a
the
great
can.
guy, Urban. We get it.
You're kicking the can.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So in 3 seasons at UF, I just want to say these.
It's like all the presidents we have in America. Every president for the last 50 years. Let's just kick the can down the road to the next guy and blame it on them, you know?
Not my problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's blame the last guy every single time.
Mm-hmm. In 3 seasons at UF, he recorded 111 catches, 1,382 yards, 12 touchdowns, won the John Mackey Award as the nation's top tight end, and was a first-team All-American. His on-field resume screamed NFL ready, but his off-field resume was a catalog of quote-unquote incidents avoided, thanks to his talent and the indulgence of those around him. Now, Florida's coaches tried various strategies to manage Aaron. They knew that he was a high risk. One approach was to surround him with stable influences. He was roomed with twin brothers Marquise and Mike Pouncey, fellow Gator players from a tough background who were seen as more positive influences. Have you heard of them? Well, Aaron grew close to the Pounceys, and for a while it seemed to work. He stayed out of major trouble through the 2008 and 2009 seasons, but even those friends couldn't change who Aaron was at his core. Years later, evidence emerged suggesting that Coach Meyer's program may have helped cover up some of Aaron's misdeeds to keep him eligible, which nobody is surprised by that. But a Rolling Stone investigation claimed that Florida officials might have swept 2 violent incidents under the rug, which includes that 2007 bar assault and the suspected drive-by shooting, and possibly helped hide failed drug tests as well. So Aaron Hernandez, by the time he left college, had truly never been held accountable for any of his actions. At this point, he was a 20-year-old with a national championship ring and countless accolades, but also a young man with deep-seated anger, substance abuse issues, and a history of getting away with bad behavior.
And then real talk, questioning his sexuality also, which I think is just another wrench thrown into this that's like, what?
Right. It's another mindfuck because if he can't reconcile who he is at his core, it only festers outward. It only manifests into something toxic.
Yep.
So this was the volatile package that the NFL was now asked to evaluate. By the end of his junior year at Florida, Aaron Hernandez had achieved college football glory. In 2009, he led the Florida Gators in receptions and was quarterback Tim Tebow's favorite target. He helped Florida win an SEC championship and had a standout performance in the Sugar Bowl. So his athletic ability was never in question. Scouts drooled over his combination of size, speed, and agility for a tight end. Winning the prestigious John Mackey Award just confirmed that he was the best at his position in the college game. So from a purely football perspective, Aaron's future looked bright. But off the field, the incidents and antics really continued right up until he left for the NFL. And Aaron's coursework at Florida, I want to point out, was less than rigorous. He took classes like bowling and plants, gardening, and literally, that's a class that he took.
I don't know if you know this, not uncommon.
No, it's not, because I went to KU, and at the time I was there, we won the national championship for basketball, and I had some classes with some of the basketball players. They hardly ever showed up, and it was always like a Comm 101 class.
Yeah, it's funny because in D1 school, these athletes, which they're working their asses off, practices.
For sure.
They're working their asses off. But the mindset seems to be, hey, these guys don't have time for school. So, like, we'll take care of the school piece for you. You just go on the field and perform. Mm-hmm. Which, again, goes to what I've said this multiple times this episode, a thing I could go on a whole entire rant about, which is, like, college is such bullshit. And here we are going to milk it for every dollar, and we're going to put these people on a stage and put them on the field and milk the program, and we'll get the schoolwork taken care of for you. It's just like, what?
Yeah. He earned a D in one of his classes and then failed to complete another class, showing that academics were never his priority. But they hardly are with athletes. I just feel like in general.
And you
that's
can't
not
blame
to say,
them when they're like Aaron Hernandez and they're going to go pro.
Exactly.
Like, oh, you're going to be a first round, second round draft pick next year? Yeah, who gives a shit about school?
Yeah.
Like, who in their right mind is like, I don't know, I have my business degree.
Yeah.
I'm here to play football.
I can't go celebrate this national championship. I have a final tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I'm here to play football.
Yeah, exactly. Before heading into the NFL draft, Aaron tried to do a bit of damage control regarding his reputation. He knew that teams had concerns about his behavior. At the 2010 NFL Scouting Combine, which, if you don't know, is the big pre-draft evaluation event, Aaron met with NFL team representatives and admitted candidly that he had used marijuana regularly in college and had even failed a drug test at Florida. So by coming clean, he hoped to convince teams that he had nothing else to hide.
Not how the NFL looks at that.
No. He even went so far as to write a letter to all 32 NFL teams offering to take bi-weekly drug tests in his rookie year to prove that he could stay clean. And this was an extraordinary step, essentially saying, like, I know I messed up, but you can keep me on a short leash and I'll behave. The University of Florida's influence likely helped craft this strategy because they wanted their star to succeed at the next level, but they probably also just wanted to get rid of him. Because at that point, I think he's really becoming a liability. Mm-hmm. The truth was, NFL teams were indeed wary. Despite Aaron's first-round talent, word of his character issues had spread through league scouting circles. Teams conduct extensive background checks, and Aaron's file was full of red flags. Bar fights, rumors of violence, drug use, and a generally immature attitude. One pre-draft report even gave him the lowest possible score in social maturity. Which, what do you expect when you send a kid off to college at 17 and he's just playing for this star football team? Like, what do you expect? Multiple franchises, reportedly the Colts, Bengals, and Dolphins, among others, simply removed him from their draft board entirely. Those teams decided they would not pick him at any price. As the 2010 NFL draft unfolded, name after name was called, and Aaron remained available. Finally, in the fourth round, with the 113th overall pick, the New England Patriots decided the potential reward outweighed the risk. And at 20 years old, Aaron Hernandez became a Patriot.
Which in some ways really surprises me, because you have Bill Belichick and this tight-knit organization in their dynasty years, and it's like, I can't believe it. But then on the other hand, look at who was lined up on the other side of the line at tight end, dominating Rob Gronkowski. And if you watch Rob Gronkowski interviews or Bill Belichick interviews about picking Rob Gronkowski, I cannot believe they picked the guy.
Why?
Because Rob's dumb.
Well, yeah, I think
Rob's
he kind
dumb. Rob completely bombed the interview. He was like sleeping during the. I mean, hold on a second. Pause. All right, I have two things to play. Here's one of Gronk talking about his pre-draft Patriots meeting.
I partied at University of Arizona one night, got absolutely hammered, had to jump on the flight the next day and start this little tour. I'm visiting all these teams, and then I got to New England, and I'm cashed. They drew up some play. It was Billy O'Brien. Sure. He drew up a play. He came back, and I didn't know one single thing. My mind was shut off, and I was just like, I basically said something like, it doesn't matter, just throw me to football. Yeah, it's just like that. And they're just mind blown. They're like, this guy is out of hand. Then I go upstairs, pass right out, right on the floor. I'm so tired, pass right out on the floor while waiting for the next coach to talk to, pass right out. Yeah. And I walked out, and I said to myself, that team is either going to draft me or that team is either crossing me off the list. I partied.
Yeah, those are the only two options, Rob.
All right, so here's Bill O'Brien talking about it just because it's funny.
Patriots draft interviews are pretty legendary stories.
We heard Gronk's version of his draft day visit. Can you give your side of the story?
So we brought him in. We took him into the team meeting room. We taught him special. You remember special?
Special seam,
so
hitch,
the special seam,
under.
hitch, the under, and the in cut by the X, right? Brought him back in. Hey, you're going to teach us this playback. If the will and the weak safety hit it, what's going to happen over there? Because we had said, hey, this is going to be a sight adjust when we taught it to him. So he's looking at the board. I'll never forget this. He's like, "Sss." And I'm like, yeah, you're getting it, Gronk. You're getting it. And he goes, sizzle? Sizzle? I'm like, sizzle? What, did you eat at Sizzler last night? Like, no, it's a sight adjust, Gronk. A scout came in and took him up to another floor where Nancy Meyer was.
Yeah, Miss Nancy.
So no one for a while could find Gronk. Finally, like, Nancy's like, he's up here. He's asleep on the table.
Oh, my God.
Gronk is a massive human. He's curled up on a circle table in this room across from Nancy Meyer.
Okay, so now if you're not here for football and you're like, hey, enough, Austin, then just skip like 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds ahead. But here's Bill Belichick talking about drafting Rob Gronkowski.
Okay.
What was everything going on with Gronk from the beginning?
Yeah, Rob was kind of a shot in the dark. He came up on his pre-draft visit, had a bad visit. We put him in a room, came back, he was asleep on the floor, didn't make a very good impression.
He was what? He was sleeping on the floor?
Yeah, well, I brought him in. We just kind of, we're getting ready to, have a meeting with the coaches and go through, and then I fell asleep on the floor.
It happens.
Like, oh boy, so
what was he doing the night
kind of got a
before?
slow start there. Went to Arizona, didn't do much as a freshman, had a decent year as a sophomore, caught 30 passes, and then missed his junior year with back surgery, and then came out early for the draft. So there wasn't much to go on.
So you can see why I'm like, man, I can't believe they would take him. But then, yeah, they took Gronk, so why not take Aaron Hernandez? Let's take a flyer on him.
Yeah. So do you think that they chose him basically just because of his stats? Because at that point, like, obviously he doesn't make a good impression in any other way. But if he can catch a football, then
I think they took him.
Like,
I think they took him. They just said, hey, like you said when you first said it, it was like a cost, risk versus reward.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we know this guy is crazy talented.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no question Aaron Hernandez was a beast. When he played in the Super Bowl for the Patriots, he was debatably the biggest weapon on the field that game. And they signed him to a $40 million extension months before his murder. So, like,
right.
Aaron Hernandez was a stud.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, imagine if he would have gotten in the NFL and gotten clean and gone the right path. Then you won.
Mm-hmm.
You just won the lottery because you took Aaron Hernandez, the 4th round? You stole him.
Yeah, yeah.
But so it's just anything else. It's just a gamble in life. But he ended up not being that guy. And so, I mean, he was that guy on the field, but he murdered somebody. Yeah. And so then it's like...
Well, and at that point, they didn't even know. He was on the field
he was on, yes.
after he had murdered people. And
the double life blows my mind
insane.
Because imagine you're associated with him. You're in these circles, whether it's the guy getting shot and you're friends with him or your guys with Aaron, okay? He's your boy. And you're watching on Sundays, Aaron Hernandez. I mean, think about it. It's like, turn on the TV on Sunday and watch Travis Kelce dominate and know that you were just shooting somebody with him the other night or know that he just shot your homie. I mean, it's like, how can you even wrap your head around that? But that's how big of a double life he was living.
Yeah.
It's, to me, just because I like sports so much, to me, it's just mind blowing. Look, MJ, imagine you got a guy in the court and they're doing that. What?
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. The Patriots were a model franchise with a strong locker room culture led by none other than superstar quarterback, the GOAT, Tom Brady, and legendary head coach Bill Belichick. So if anyone could keep a troubled rookie in line, you would think it would be the Patriots.
They got Rob Gronkowski on the straight and narrow.
Yeah,
so they just thought, let's try it. Which I'll just say, they've since erased him from history. He has not anything to do with the Patriots.
Erased Aaron?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
He's out.
Well, I learned that because eventually, and I'll get to that point, but, initially it seemed like a steal, New England getting this first round talent in the 4th round. So I do understand that aspect of it. And Aaron quickly proved himself on the field alongside fellow rookie tight end Rob Gronkowski. What? Who? Gronkowski.
Who seems like a really fun, cool dude, right?
He just seems kind of like a dumb jock, but I feel like he kind of plays up to that, like, dumb jock persona.
I think so too.
I mean, it's in every commercial he does, in every roast he's on, they all attack his intelligence. I think deep down he probably is actually smart and just plays this dumb routine because he is so smart.
Maybe not.
Sense.
Successful regardless.
Maybe not, though. He has a beautiful girlfriend.
Maybe not, though.
Okay, anyway. In his rookie season, Aaron caught touchdown passes and made big plays. By his second season in 2011, the Patriots were using him in creative ways, even occasionally as a running back or receiver. He and Rob both scored 5+ touchdowns in back-to-back seasons, making NFL history as a tight end pairing. So, yeah, they're like a dynamic duo.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, until it came out, like, they made the best choice ever. They won.
Well, and they were smart about it because they were fully aware of Aaron's checkered past, and New England structured his rookie contract with his behavior in mind. So unlike most 4th-round picks, he received a very small signing bonus of only $200,000 and a series of incentive-laden roster bonuses that he'd have to earn by staying out of trouble and performing.
Smart.
So the message was clear. If you walk the straight and narrow, then you'll get paid like a higher draft pick. But if not, we've minimized our losses. So Patriots owner Robert Kraft later said Aaron had essentially promised the team that he would be this exemplary citizen, even sending the front office letters expressing that they had nothing to worry about. In those early days, Aaron seemed grateful for the opportunity and eager to prove his doubters wrong. And that was his chance. That was his chance to really pave the trajectory for his life in a positive direction. For a little while, things were calm. Aaron moved to Massachusetts, got engaged to Cheyenne Jenkins, his high school sweetheart. They bought a house in a quiet suburb of North Attleboro, not far from the Patriots Stadium. By 2012, Cheyenne was pregnant with their first child, and the Patriots, convinced that Aaron had matured, rewarded him with a massive 5-year, $40 million contract extension in August of 2012. So this deal included the largest signing bonus ever for a tight end, which was about $12.5 million up front. The team believed that they were locking up a cornerstone player for years to come. Aaron even made a point of donating $50,000 from his bonus to charity, trying to display gratitude and goodwill. So on the surface, it looked like he was this once troubled kid who had finally figured it out. He was only 22, rich beyond his imagination, newly a father to a baby girl, and playing for a championship caliber team. Yet beneath that shiny exterior, turmoil was brewing. Aaron's lifelong demons didn't just magically disappear with NFL stardom. In fact, with so much money and free time, some of his worst tendencies only grew. For one, he never severed ties with his friends from Bristol who had dubious backgrounds. He often hosted friends from Connecticut at his new mansion, guys who weren't college buddies or NFL teammates, but rather these hometown pals, most with criminal records.
Which, it's worth just asking the question for the sake of conversation. If Aaron would have gotten out of the Northeast, if he would have been drafted to the New Orleans Saints, to the not Vegas Raiders at the time, the Oakland, you know what I'm saying? If he would have gotten the hell away, would he have had a chance? I don't know.
And it's sad because eventually he does try to leave, but Bill Belichick wouldn't let him. And I'll get to that point. But former Patriots receiver Brandon Lloyd recalled that in 2012, Aaron's moods swung wildly day to day. He said there would be swings where he'd be the most hypermasculine, aggressive individual in the room, ready to fight somebody in fits of rage, or he'd be the most sensitive person talking about cuddling with his mom or asking, "Do you think I'm good enough to play?" And this Jekyll and Hyde behavior left teammates walking on eggshells around him. At times, Aaron overshared or acted inappropriately. In one instance, veteran receiver Wes Welker jokingly teased Hernandez for needing extra help learning the playbook, and Aaron reacted by threatening to fuck him up, which was a shockingly aggressive response to just mild ribbing.
Especially considering Wes Welker is just like a real, that's not a surprising thing for him. He's probably just messing around. It's just his personality.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. But it was to Aaron, he took it as a very serious dig. Mm-hmm. And Welker took it seriously enough that he pulled aside Brandon Lloyd and essentially warned him that Aaron might do and say things that are way over the line, from weird sexual comments to outright flashing people in the locker room. And the best course is just to ignore it and walk away. Now, this story, which came out later, just paints a picture of a young man who's testing his boundaries constantly. And even Tom Brady, the consummate leader, had moments where he had had enough of Aaron's antics. During one practice walkthrough, Aaron was goofing around in flip-flops, being loud and disruptive, while Brady was trying to keep things serious. And finally, Brady snapped and yelled, "Shut the fuck up, get the fuck out of here," at Aaron. So Aaron's mood flipped instantaneously from giggling to storming off in a rage like a child who had just been scolded. Incidents like this really worried people. Longtime teammates thought something was off. Linebacker Dane Fletcher remembered exchanging actual punches with Aaron early on. They had a volatile relationship, apparently. And he said it was obvious that Aaron's constant entourage of ex-convict buddies from Bristol was a red flag. Here they were in one of the NFL's most professional organizations, yet Aaron was keeping company with guys who had no business around a pro sports team. So by 2012, internally, the Patriots were growing concerned that Aaron Hernandez's life outside the facility was a powder keg. Coach Bill Belichick, notoriously strict about distractions, was aware that Aaron was missing team workouts, nursing unexplained injuries, and running with a rough crowd. A Rolling Stone report later revealed that Aaron had infuriated Bill Belichick with his thug life stunts and missed appointments, to the point that the coach told people Aaron was just one misstep away from being cut. The team had even had their security personnel keep an eye on him. Aaron, for his part, began to grow paranoid and fearful because he was living this double life, like you mentioned, this family man, and NFL star on one hand, and then on the other hand, a guy who hung out in nightclubs with gang members and carried guns. So it's worth noting that during this time, Aaron's mental state was deteriorating. Some of it may have been internal, like his own psychological struggles, and some of it likely chemical. And then he had replaced his heavy marijuana habit with something far more dangerous, PCP, or angel dust. Now, according to later reports, Aaron became a frequent user of PCP, which is a powerful hallucinogenic drug known to cause extreme paranoia and erratic behavior. He was reportedly high on PCP almost constantly in the year leading up to his crimes. The drug made him think that people were out to get him. He started carrying a pistol everywhere he went, even just around the house or to the grocery store, because he didn't feel safe without it.
And not just carrying the gun, because that's one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I carry a gun all over. Carrying a gun with intent to use it and not being afraid to use it for nothing.
Yes. Yeah, this ticking time bomb.
I just want to be clear because I like guns, and I think carrying a gun is smart. Not carrying a gun high on PCP with this history.
Yeah, that's the problem. The gun problem lies in the owners of the guns and whose hands they're in.
Yes.
But in addition to that, he further isolated himself, cutting off many of his old supportive friends and surrounding himself with shady characters who would often do his bidding. In early 2013, Aaron's paranoia really peaked, and that February, he had a private meeting with Coach Belichick during the offseason at the NFL Scouting Combine, where he made a stunning request begging Belichick to trade him to a team on the West Coast because he feared for his life in New England.
I didn't know that.
He told his coach that people might potentially harm him or his fiancée, Shayana, and their baby, and that he just needed to get away. But Belichick was taken aback. He offered to get team security involved if Aaron felt threatened, but Aaron oddly declined that help. Instead, he just wanted out. But Belichick refused to trade him, but did agree to help Aaron find a new, safer residence away from the hangers-on. Aaron moved to a luxury apartment, which teammates later nicknamed his flop house, presumably to keep certain activities away from his family home. But the irony is that even as Aaron was begging out of New England for safety, he continued making dangerous choices. In the months before and after that plea, he allegedly was involved in multiple violent incidents. In July of 2012, he had been present at and later accused of committing a double murder in Boston. In February of 2013, he shot his friend and partner in crime, Alexander Bradley, in the face in Florida, which I believe that guy now has a glass eye because of it. Survived the shooting, but was, irreparably damaged from it, of course. And apparently this was because Bradley knew about the Boston incident, so he's just compounding
Is the Boston incident Odin Lloyd?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that's a separate incident.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we'll get into the details of that one in a minute. But then, of course, in June of 2013, the event that finally ended everything occurred, which was the murder of Odin Lloyd. Now, in the early hours of June 17th, 2013, a grisly discovery was made in an industrial park in North Attleboro, Massachusetts. The body of a 27-year-old man riddled with bullet wounds to the back and chest. The victim was Odin Lloyd, a semi-pro football player from the Boston area who happened to be dating the sister of Aaron's fiancée, Shayana. Odin was not a stranger or a random person. He and Aaron knew each other very well. In fact, just hours before, the two had been together. The story of that night plays out like a tragic puzzle. On June 16th, Father's Day of 2013, Aaron spent the day at home. Then late that night, he texted two friends from Connecticut, Carlos Ortiz and Ernest Wallace, urging them to come up to Massachusetts. Ortiz and Wallace drove up, arriving after midnight. Around 2:30 a.m. on June 17th, Aaron, with Ortiz and Wallace in his Nissan Altima, picked up Odin Lloyd from his home in Boston. Odin likely thought that it was just a late-night hangout. After all, he was dating Aaron's soon-to-be sister-in-law, and they sometimes partied together. But as the car headed toward that secluded industrial area, Odin possibly started growing uneasy, because at 3:07 a.m. from the passenger seat of Aaron's car, Odin sent a text to his sister, "Did you see who I am with?" And when she asked who, he replied, "NFL." And that was followed by a final text, "Just so you know." Those were Odin's last known words, an ominous hint that he sensed danger. And in hindsight, it seems he wanted to leave a breadcrumb about who he was with and NFL player Aaron Hernandez. Minutes later, in that dark gravel pit of an industrial park, a gun was fired 5 times. Odin Lloyd was shot dead, hit in the back twice, and once to the chest, among other wounds. The 3 other men, Hernandez, Ortiz, and Wallace, fled the scene, leaving Odin's body where it fell. Nearby residents heard gunshots and saw a car speeding away at around 3:25 a.m. By the next morning, a jogger had discovered the corpse and the area was swarming with police. The crime sent shockwaves through the Patriots community and the NFL. Aaron Hernandez, a freshly minted multimillionaire athlete, was immediately under suspicion because of his connection to the victim and the proximity. The body was found less than a mile from his own house, Aaron's house. Now, when investigators reached out to the Patriots organization, the team's leadership already had a bad feeling. On June 18th, police executed a search warrant on Aaron's mansion. What they found raised even more alarms. For one, Aaron had destroyed his home security system's DVR, ripped out the surveillance footage from that night. He also handed his cell phone to police in pieces because he smashed it. To top it off, he had hired a team of professional cleaners to come and scrub his house that same day that Odin's body was found. These actions looked a lot like an attempted cover-up.
See, I thought, real quick question, I thought in the documentary there was something about how on his own home security system, he had, maybe it was he destroyed it, but what they got off of it was him walking around with the gun he killed Odin with on the camera the day of or something.
Yes, so that is true.
Okay.
So they found that a Nissan Altima had been rented in Aaron's name for that weekend, the same make of car seen on video surveillance near the crime scene. A set of keys for that rental car was actually discovered in the pocket of Odin Lloyd's pants, essentially placing Odin in a car that was tied to Aaron in his final moments. And then more evidence piled up. Surveillance cameras in Aaron's own home, before they were destroyed, had captured that telling footage. Earlier on the night of June 16th, those cameras showed Aaron handling what appeared to be a firearm inside his house. Later, just minutes after the time of the murder, cameras caught Aaron returning home, nervously walking around with a gun in his hand.
At the right time and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because this whole PCP that had made him so nervous, he installed like an insane security system, and the security system is like kind of what busted him.
Right. It was part of it for sure.
Yeah.
It was damning visual evidence that he was with Odin and likely armed at the relevant time that Odin was shot.
Yeah.
And then forensic clues also emerged. Aaron had stopped at a gas station with Odin and the others on the way to the industrial park, and there he bought gum, blue cotton candy flavored Bubblicious bubble gum, and cigarettes. And I just feel like that is such a testament to that stunted immaturity,
yes,
that he's out there getting Bubblicious bubble gum.
Yeah, like I haven't had that since I was a kid.
No. And I feel like that is such an eerie detail because we have this like 10-year-old in a 20-year-old's body.
With all kinds of money.
With all kind of money. Yeah, yes, exactly. But anyway, at the murder scene, investigators found spent shell casings from the gun, and one of the casings had a piece of chewed blue bubble gum stuck to it. And tests later showed that Aaron's DNA was on that gum. So it was almost comically incriminating, this literal sticky piece of evidence tying Aaron Hernandez to the shooting, and Bubblicious of all types of gum. But police additionally discovered a footprint in the dirt at the scene that matched the sneakers that Aaron was wearing on the home surveillance that night. And then there were the text messages. Odin's ominous text to his sister couldn't be used in court as evidence of his fear, but they were powerful context. Phone records showed Odin and Aaron communicating through June 16th about meeting up. Shortly before Odin was killed at 3:23, he sent a final text to Aaron, which went unanswered, that said, "We still on?" as they drove, likely confirming that he was still okay with meeting up. So investigators theorized a motive, but never established one definitively. Why would Aaron Hernandez execute someone he knew, someone dating into his own extended family? The prosecution later suggested that Aaron felt that Odin had betrayed his trust. Perhaps Odin had seen or heard something that Aaron didn't want out. One persistent theory was that Odin knew about Hernandez's involvement in the 2012 double homicide in Boston, or perhaps about Aaron's secret bisexuality, and Aaron feared that Odin might talk. Another theory was that at a nightclub 2 nights before, Odin was speaking to people that Aaron didn't like, causing Aaron to just seethe. But whatever the trigger was, the end result was murder. On June 26th, with evidence mounting, police moved in to arrest Aaron at his home. TV news helicopters hovered overhead as officers led a shirtless, handcuffed Aaron Hernandez out his front door, covering his torso with his white t-shirt. And these were images that would be replayed on national news all day. The Patriots management, who had been anxiously monitoring the situation, within 90 minutes of his arrest, released Aaron from the team.
Ain't messing around.
It's kind of crazy, though, that like, okay, you've killed someone, now we're going to kick you off. But it's like, that's what it takes, apparently, for a team or a management to kick somebody off. That's what it takes.
It is crazy. You got to think it's a business, and he was producing on the field. He was really good at his job.
I guess.
You know, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it's crazy.
Yeah. But that very same day, Patriots officials were at the team facilities offering a free exchange. So any fan
Aaron
who owned
Hernandez jersey in exchange for
any other player.
Any other player.
Yeah, any other player. It was as if Aaron had become a non-person overnight in Patriots land. And even Coach Belichick forbid the team from so much as mentioning Aaron's name going forward.
Yeah, they just wanted to erase him. They just didn't want him to ever have anything to do with the organization.
Yeah.
So crazy.
He was charged with first-degree murder and multiple weapons charges. 2 alleged accomplices, Carlos Ortiz and Ernest Wallace, were also arrested within days. Both Ortiz and Wallace had ties to Hernandez from Bristol, and cell phone pings placed them with Aaron that night. So they eventually faced accessory to murder charges. It seemed likely Aaron was the triggerman, while these 2 helped or were simply present. And in the coming months, Aaron was indicted by a grand jury for Odin's murder, and he pled not guilty. His fiancée was also indicted for perjury because prosecutors believed that she lied to a grand jury to protect Aaron. She allegedly disposed of a box from their basement at Aaron's request, potentially including the firearm that was used. Even Tanya Singleton, Aaron's loyal cousin that we talked about in the beginning, was charged as an accessory after the fact for helping Aaron hide a car linked to another crime, which I'll get to in a second. But the family circle was caught in this legal dragnet, illustrating how entwined they were in Aaron's web of criminal activity. His murder trial for Odin Lloyd's killing took place in early of 2015 in Fall River, Massachusetts. It was a media spectacle, a former NFL star on trial for a cold-blooded murder. Over the course of the trial, the prosecution laid out the evidence as we've discussed, and perhaps the most damaging was that Aaron Hernandez had no credible alibi or explanation for any of it. The defense team, funded by Aaron's NFL earnings, tried to sow doubt by suggesting that Aaron was present at the scene but not the shooter, implying that maybe it was Ortiz or Wallace that did it without Aaron's knowledge. However, neither of those men testified directly against Aaron. Ortiz eventually took a plea deal for accessory, and Wallace went to his own trial later. So the jury wasn't convinced by the idea that Aaron was an innocent bystander to his friend's crime. On April 15th, 2015, they returned a verdict of guilty of murder in the first degree, plus 5 firearm charges. So Aaron Hernandez, at 25 years old, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So while Aaron was awaiting trial for Odin's murder, another bombshell had dropped. Investigators in Boston had revisited that unsolved July of 2012 double homicide of 2 immigrant men, Daniel De Abreu and Safiro Furtado, who were killed in a drive-by shooting after leaving a nightclub. Now, this reopen happened because evidence in the Lloyd case, notably that suspicious SUV, tied Aaron to the Boston murders. That SUV, a silver Toyota 4Runner with Rhode Island plates, had been seen fleeing the 2012 shooting. And in 2013, police found that very 4Runner hidden away in Tanya's garage in Connecticut. So, you see how everything kind of just came crashing down all at once. And it was like all the puzzle pieces are fitting together now. But that discovery led to a new indictment. So in 2014, Aaron was charged with killing De Abreu and Furtado, the 2 victims from 2012. The allegation was mind-boggling that in the summer of 2012, weeks after signing his big Patriots extension with multi-million dollars falling in his lap, Aaron had pulled up alongside these strangers at a traffic light and opened fire, all because one of them had accidentally spilled a drink on him at a Boston nightclub, and Aaron felt disrespected. So when you think about that, the fact that he pulled up and shot two random guys at a stoplight and then later went to perform in the Super Bowl and win, that's kind of crazy.
It's insane.
Yes. One survivor from that shooting identified Aaron as the shooter, and prosecutors even pointed out that Aaron got a tattoo of a handgun and the phrase "God forgives" afterward, which was a possible trophy ink commemorating the crime. Aaron went on trial for the double homicide in early 2017. This time, in a separate trial, a jury acquitted him, largely because the key witness was Alexander Bradley, the friend who Aaron had later allegedly shot in the face to probably try to silence. And the defense effectively highlighted Bradley's own criminal background and possible revenge motive. So on April 14th of 2017, Aaron was found not guilty of the 2012 murders. And it was a small legal victory in an otherwise ruined life. Aaron actually cried tears of relief in the court as that not guilty verdict was read. And for a moment, I think he had hope. His lawyers were also in the process of appealing his Odin Lloyd conviction. So there was this glimmer that perhaps he could win a new trial or someday leave prison. But that hope didn't last long because 5 days later, Aaron was dead. Aaron Hernandez's life in prison was, for the most part, just as turbulent, as erratic as his life outside. After his conviction in 2015, he was sent to the Souza Baranowski Correctional Center, a maximum security prison in Massachusetts, to begin serving life without parole. Initially, he spent nearly 2 years in county jail awaiting trial, and then another 2 years in state prison. During that time, there were multiple disciplinary incidents and signs that Aaron was not adjusting well to incarceration. In February of 2014, while at the county jail, Aaron got into a fight with a fellow inmate who had been harassing him. The two were being transported from an infirmary when words were exchanged, and Aaron allegedly punched the other inmate and knocked him to the ground. Neither of them were seriously hurt, but it was a violent outburst not long after his arrest, indicating that Aaron's temper was still pretty raw and probably unpredictable. Later, in March of 2015, which would have been just before his conviction, there was another incident. Aaron was implicated as a lookout in a gang-related prison fight at Souza Baranowski, the correctional facility where he ultimately ended up. According to a law enforcement source, Aaron stood guard at a cell door to watch for guards while an inmate that he was allied with went into another inmate's cell to fight. The altercation was believed to be gang-related, and Aaron had allegedly affiliated himself with a gang in prison, possibly for protection. As punishment, Aaron and the others were disciplined, and Aaron was put into a segregated unit for a time. In just the first 22 months locked up, he racked up over 20 disciplinary write-ups for various infractions, from fighting to disrespect. So he was far from a model prisoner. Yet there were also glimpses of introspection and routine. Through monitored phone calls, letters, and occasional visits, we learned pieces of Aaron's mindset while he was in prison. Surprisingly, some who spoke to him said that he could sound upbeat and even rational at times. He kept in close touch with his fiancée, who remained loyal and even took his last name, hyphenating hers from Jenkins to Jenkins-Hernandez. And he adored his young daughter and would draw pictures for her or write letters to her from prison. But Aaron also had a lot of anger and unresolved issues that surfaced in his communications. Notably, in phone calls with his mother, Terry, deep resentments just poured out. In one emotional call, he told Terry that she messed up his whole life and vented about how her choices after his dad's death left him to pick up the pieces. He said, quote, "I had to go to college and I had nobody. If I was with you right now, I'd probably punch the shit out of you." Said that to his own mom. Aaron also formed new relationships while incarcerated. There were rumors, later publicized, that he became close to a fellow prisoner in a more than friends way, essentially that he had a jailhouse lover who claimed to have been Aaron's intimate companion. And listen, there is so much debate about the truth behind this, and I actually don't think it's that uncommon for men in prison to get desperate and do things that they wouldn't normally do outside and maybe question their sexuality and do things that are born out of boredom or just this like desperation for companionship, right? Like it's just not unheard of for men to make the switch when they're serving life in prison.
I can't relate. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking out of desperation or
He's
something.
just staring at me like, I don't know anything about
but that's okay. Whatever you say.
Yeah. So Aaron's sexuality became a topic of much discussion after his death with
Wouldn't it be weird if I was like, definitely get that?
Yeah. I
mean, it'd be weird just for us, right?
For sure. For us, it would be weird.
So I'm just going to look at you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So anyway, former friends of his were saying that he had secret relationships with multiple different men since high school. And in prison, free of the NFL's hypermasculine culture, it's possible Aaron felt a little more able to explore that side of himself, which is funny because it's almost ironic. Like prison, you would think is this hypermasculine place because it's full of men. But when you're, all locked up together and you're desperate and bored and you're in there for the rest of your life, I can see why desperate times call for desperate measures. But again, you're just staring at me like a deer in headlights.
What do you want me to say here?
I don't know. I mean,
Keep going.
I've heard of this happening.
Okay, you said it twice.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to add credence to why people would talk about this and credence to why some people carry this narrative as if it's the truth. Like, I can see how that can be true, and I can also see how it's not. So we don't know. Nobody knows except Aaron, and he's not here. So anyway, it's ultimately just a complex aspect of his story. So we'll move on. But remarkably, in April of 2017, there was this moment of hope for Aaron Hernandez, his acquittal in the double homicide trial. After hearing not guilty in the Boston courtroom, Aaron was seen smiling and weeping tears of joy. He turned to his fiancée in court and mouthed, "I love you." He seemed optimistic, even telling his lawyer, Jose Baez, who also represented Casey Anthony, by the way, he told him, "Get ready to file an appeal for the Odin Lloyd case because I believe you'll be coming home." And this was according to Jose Baez. But indeed, Massachusetts law still allowed an old doctrine where if a person dies before their appeal is heard, then their conviction can be vacated. So some speculate that Aaron was aware of this quirk, meaning that if he died, legally he'd no longer be a convicted murderer, potentially helping his family avoid civil liability or even allowing the Patriots to pay out certain contract money. So whether or not he thought that far,
interesting.
What happened next was tragic and still somewhat mysterious. So 5 days after the acquittal, in the early morning hours of April 19th of 2017, Aaron Hernandez was found hanging in his prison cell, dead by suicide. He was just 27 years old. The news shocked the public. Aaron had just had a legal victory. Why would he take his own life? The details that emerged were haunting. Correction officers found Aaron at about 3:05 a.m. hanging from a bedsheet that was tied to his window bars. He had jammed cardboard into the door track to prevent officers from easily opening his cell, and then he had spread shampoo on the floor to make it slippery, clear signs of a carefully planned act. Perhaps the most eerie detail, on Aaron's forehead, written in red ink or, according to some reports, blood, was the phrase John 3:16.
I did not know that.
This was the same Bible verse that was also written on the wall of his cell in a substance that was resembling blood. But John 3:16 is a famous scripture about salvation through Jesus that says, quote, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son." Now, a Bible was also found open to that verse in his cell, and it appeared that Aaron, who had a Bible verse tattoo and had been raised with some religion, was seeking some form of forgiveness or salvation in his final moments. Investigators also found 3 handwritten notes next to the Bible. While the contents have not been fully released, officials said that they were letters to his loved ones, and one line from a note to Cheyenne read, "You're rich," fueling speculation that he understood that by voiding his conviction, he might secure financial support for her and his daughter. In the immediate aftermath, there was grief, confusion, and controversy. His family, especially Cheyenne and brother DJ, were devastated, insisting that they never saw this coming. His attorney, Jose Baez, strongly denied that Aaron had any intention to harm himself, even suggesting initially that it might have been foul play. But the evidence of suicide was overwhelming. Aaron had barricaded the door, left notes, it was not a spontaneous act. He had thought it through in the approximately 48 hours after the acquittal. One theory is that the high of being found not guilty in one case, followed by returning alone to a cell to still serve life for the other case, was just too much to bear, like this crushing whiplash of reality. Whatever his reasoning, the end was deeply tragic. The Patriots were, coincidentally, visiting the White House the day that Aaron died, celebrating their Super Bowl win without him. Many commented on the dark symbolism of that timing. In death, Aaron did temporarily achieve a strange legal victory. For a time, he was not technically a convicted murderer, but Massachusetts later closed that loophole in 2019, reinstating his conviction and abolishing automatic abatement of convictions upon his death. But more importantly, in death, Aaron Hernandez became a subject of intense study, both to understand how he went so wrong and to see what could be learned to prevent such a downfall in others. So after Aaron's death, his family agreed to donate his brain to science, specifically to Boston University's CTE Center.
Worst CTE in anybody ever observed under 27 years old, right?
Correct.
Crazy.
Yes. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy is what CTE stands for, and it is the degenerative brain disease linked to repeated head trauma. And this had been found in numerous former football players, sometimes linked with depression, impulse control problems, and even violence. Still, the results of Aaron's brain examination were shocking to the neuropathologist, Dr. Ann McKee, a leading expert on CTE. And she revealed that Aaron had one of the most severe cases of CTE ever seen in someone of his age. Despite being only 27 years old, Aaron's brain showed stage 3 CTE, with stage 4 being the most extreme. So typically, such extensive damage is not found in anyone younger than 40 or 50. In fact, Dr. McKee said that they had never seen stage 3 in a person as young as Aaron. His brain had substantial damage to regions that govern memory, impulse control, and behavior, including the frontal lobes, which are responsible for judgment and executive function, and the hippocampus, which controls memory and emotional regulation. In slides and images shown to the public, the tissue looked riddled with protein deposits and other hallmark signs of advanced CTE. So this discovery reignited the debate. Did football and the brain injuries that it caused contribute to Aaron Hernandez's downfall? Dr. McKee was very careful in her statements. She noted that while one cannot directly connect the dots in an individual case with absolute certainty, Aaron's pathology was consistent with symptoms like volatility, impulsivity, and aggression. So it's tantalizing to think that his brain damage might explain some of his irrational violence. However, McKee also cautioned that you can't blame all of someone's actions on CTE because there are many factors at play. In Aaron's case, it was truly a perfect storm. An abusive childhood with trauma, genetic factors. BU researchers noted that he had a genetic marker that might predispose him to brain disease. Then you also had heavy drug use, possible mental illness, and then CTE layered on top. And then you have this fame and fortune, which only exacerbates your problems because you have unlimited access to dangerous things, right? Aaron's legal team wasted no time leveraging the CTE finding. They filed lawsuits against the NFL and the New England Patriots on behalf of Aaron's younger daughter, claiming that the league and team failed to protect Aaron or warn him adequately about the dangers of concussions. The suit described Aaron's life as a chaotic and horrendous existence, caused in large part by his advanced CTE. Now, it's true that Aaron had taken many jolting hits throughout his playing days. For instance, in high school, he was knocked out cold by a blindside hit and had to be taken off in an ambulance. In college and the pros, he likely had multiple concussions. Some were probably undocumented. He even used Toradol, which is a painkiller, regularly, which might have allowed him to ignore head injuries and just keep playing. And what is it with Toradol? I feel like
Toradol is
you know about this.
It's real common that athletes will use it for injuries, just to mask pain.
Yeah, and then they play through those injuries, which only creates further
Yeah,
damage.
it's like you're in a serious game, you get hit hard and break your finger, go on the sideline and down some Toradol and get back on the field type thing.
Right, which is crazy.
It's insane.
But the CTE revelation really helped reframe Aaron's story, in some observers' eyes anyway, from simply a murderous thug to also a potential victim of his sports violence. And it raised difficult questions. If his brain was so damaged, was he fully responsible for his actions? Could the sudden rages and paranoia be at least partly the result of repetitive head trauma? We know other NFL players with CTE have struggled with impulse control, and some have committed suicide or violent acts, like Junior Seau. Am I saying that right?
Junior Seau, yeah.
And then Dave Duerson.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Well, both of them shot themselves and were later found to have CTE. But Aaron's case was especially extreme given his age and criminal outcomes. Some experts point out that CTE alone does not make someone a murderer. Thousands of athletes have CTE and don't kill. But in combination with Aaron's other personal factors, it very well could have amplified his worst tendencies. Now, psychologists and criminologists who have dissected Aaron's life tend to take a holistic view. As one writer put it, the documentary about him threw every possible explanation into the mix. His story does indeed have layers, and we've discussed all those layers, but it's not one thing, it's all of it that likely contributed to why Aaron Hernandez did what he did. Even those closest to Aaron have different interpretations. His brother DJ wrote in his memoir that he doesn't excuse what Aaron did, but he wants people to know who his brother was behind the headlines. DJ described Aaron as someone who deeply struggled and was failed by many who could have and should have helped him. Former teammates like Brandon Spikes or Mike Pouncey remember the goofy friend who danced in the locker room and loved his family. Others, like Brandon Lloyd or Tom Brady, remember an unpredictable, a lot to handle teammate who seemed to be battling some inner demons. The Patriots owner Robert Kraft said that he felt duped, that Aaron had lied straight to his face when assuring the team that he was not involved in Odin's murder. And Kraft had even testified that Aaron told him he was innocent. In the end, Aaron Hernandez's story is a cautionary tale with more questions than answers. How does a beloved local football hero turn into a killer by his early 20s? How much of it was his choices, and how much of it was what happened to him? The narrative has elements of a Greek tragedy, extraordinary talent and opportunity undone by fatal flaws and fate. He went from catching touchdown passes in the Super Bowl to sitting in a cell for the rest of his life, and then ultimately committing suicide. And it's just a tragic tale. And like you said, the documentary does do a very good job if you want to watch the actual video, the pictures and everything.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been doing video episodes lately. I don't know if you know this, Austin, but I have.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it for this one because it would have taken even longer to record this hour-and-a-half long episode if I had a video component. But if you're interested in that, the Netflix documentary on it is very good.
Mama. Mystery.